Let's talk about some VR games today. Today I want to talk about Zero Caliber Reloaded. Now I'm doing this because the last video I made was a review about the Oculus Quest 2 headset because I've been asked to make some videos about that and I've had multiple other people ask me about that headset. So I just want to talk about some of the games for it, and this is one of my personal favorites. Zero Caliber Reloaded is a first-person shooter in which you have some, decent modded guns that you can use. They're pretty decent base models. You have to go through the campaign and unlock the guns through leveling up, and you use the cash to unlock the guns as well that you earn through the game. But it's not too difficult to do that, so it's pretty fun to keep that. But going with the campaign itself takes about 5 to 6 hours to complete, depending on how you play. And it's not like super difficult. It's pretty easy depending on the difficulty setting. There are 3 different difficulty settings: easy, medium, and veteran. Myself personally, I have basically completed the entire game on veteran mode, and that's pretty fun. It's a challenge. It's not just a walk through the park like easy mode pretty much is. So it's pretty competitive in that sense, and it's a lot of fun. The multiplayer on the game is pretty decent. There's not like a multiplayer like player versus player really, but there is multiplayer survival and there is multiplayer campaign, both of which are a lot of fun. I've played it with other Quest 2 players as well as some Rift players. It's a lot more seamless though to play it with other Quest 2 players, just because you're running at about the same frame rate and about the same, graphic settings. So it plays a lot smoother when it's 2 Quest 2 players. Overall, the game is pretty seamless. The story, it is not like super complex. It's not super detailed, but the maps themselves are pretty interesting as you're playing through it. And like I said, I personally have played through the whole game multiple times. And even though I've played through it multiple times, it's still not boring to go back into it and play it, especially with the ability to have multiple different gun loadouts. And I can go through and pick out all these different guns and play through the story again, and I can challenge myself to like dual wield shotguns or use 2 pistols only or use sniper rifles only or all kinds of things like that, which make it pretty interesting and a lot of fun. That also makes it a lot of fun to bring your buddies in with you too, because then they can do some of these challenges with you. You can, go against each other and see who can get the most kills, all that kind of fun stuff. Overall, when you take everything into account with this game, I would give it like an 8 out of 10. It's not the best game out there on the market for this. I personally think Onward's a little bit better since it has a multiplayer, player versus player option, but it doesn't really have much of a campaign that I like, whereas Zero Caliber Reloaded does. I also feel like the co-op mode on Zero Caliber plays a lot smoother. So for those reasons, I would pick Zero Caliber over Onward. But as far as graphics and multiplayer go, I'd go with Onward, which I'll make a video about Onward later. But overall, yeah, Zero Caliber is a really good game. It's a lot of fun. It's enjoyable. Me personally, I've never really had any bugs with this game. I haven't had like any crashes or anything like that. The only thing I've really had happen with it that's a little bit annoying is dealing with the frag grenades and even some of the other grenades. Frag grenades have a little bit of a difficulty when you toss them. Sometimes you can just like flick your wrist and they'll go like super far. Other times you'll try and like lob them and they'll fall like 3 feet in front of you, and that's pretty annoying. I've had some other issues as far as having to exit and restart the mission because the bots won't spawn in the right places, especially when you're playing co-op campaign. But again, it's not like a common issue. It's not something you struggle with often. I think it's only happened to me like 4 or 5 times out of like a dozen runs through the campaign. There's some other places where sometimes you can't hit buttons that you have to hit, like virtual buttons. And so that makes it a little difficult with your hands not computing properly. But again, that's not that bad. It doesn't happen very often, so it's not that big of a deal. There are some other things like the guns where sometimes your magazine will be reloaded and you'll pull back the, what would you call it? The chamber. You'd rechamber around. And it just doesn't chamber properly. Or sometimes you'll think your gun's empty and you'll empty out a magazine, put a new magazine in, but there's still a bullet in the chamber, and you fire that bullet and then you can fire the magazine. But other times, and this is where it goes wrong, is sometimes you can't fire that bullet and then continue firing your magazine, and it just kind of gets jammed and you have to chamber out the round. That's pretty nice. You don't really run into any jams in the game itself, though, as far as like randomly having your gun jam. That would be kind of nice with the amount of detail they put into these guns, the bullets, the casings, how they've come out of the guns and stuff like that. So it would have been nice to see that, but again, it's not that big of a deal. There are some other really nice things like that that go on in this game, and overall, you can't really say much bad about the game, at least not in my personal opinion, just because it is pretty smooth, it is pretty seamless. There's not that much there that you can really complain about. I don't know the max number of players on a server for a campaign, but I believe it's 4. I believe you can have 6 to 8 players on a survival map, but I'm not sure on that either because I have never maxed it out. I don't have that many friends that I play with on Quest 2. But it is pretty smooth, it is pretty seamless, and I think it's personally a very enjoyable game.